Well, still on that story, the acting police minister, Firoz Cachalia, has described the killing of those 4 people, including the 2 police officers from the anti-gang unit in Reiger Park, east of Johannesburg, as merciless. The 2 anti-gang unit officers and 2 women were killed on Friday night. The officers were responding to a gang-related incident at the time. The women were shot as they were about to get into a vehicle after they were returning, or as they were returning, is what we should say, from a shop. Now, let's speak about the visit by the police minister this afternoon back to Reiger Park. He was also there yesterday, bringing to the conversation Willem Els, a consultant with the Institute for Security Studies on issues of counter-terrorism and organised crime. Willem, I'll talk to you about what the minister had to say yesterday regarding the need for more community involvement in fighting the scourge of gangsterism in places like Raika Park. But first, just your thoughts on the breaking news lines this afternoon. The person of interest now taken into custody, identified as a known gang member. That's not entirely surprising, right?
Good afternoon to you, Temikile. Yes, I think we should actually congratulate the police for the swift action in the arrests that have been made. What is unfortunate is the news that person of interest was actually out on bail for 6 other charges, and that warrants us to ask questions why these people are being released back into the community while facing serious charges. So hopefully this time around it's not going to happen due to the prominence of the case, and also the very fact I think the strategy of the minister, the strategy of engagement by the acting minister actually goes a long way to reinforce or to bolster the trust of the community in the police, because that has been lacking for so long, and we see that is changing now.
So the minister was quite adamant in his engagement with the people of Reiger Park yesterday that ultimately the only way the battle against this sort of violent crime, gangsterism, can be won is if there is indeed more community involvement in identifying the perpetrators, the gangsters involved. But are police able to guarantee the safety of the people who would make such disclosures? Because the fear is that if you do report anything, you yourself could be in the line of fire.
Exactly. I think 2 things that we have to remember there. In the first place, these gangs, they rule by fear and by violence. They're in the community. They've got the tentacles all over, and they've got a mafia style of presence within the community. But having said that, if you look at the policing principles, if you look back at the Peel principles, where all police services and forces are being based on, is that the police is in the community, from the community, and they feed off each other. So the community, being the eyes and the ears of the police, assist them in the swift arrest and also building of cases against the perpetrators. But we see that there's a sort of a climate of fear that they rule by, and of course these people then open themselves up to some extent for that. So it's not just that police can say we will protect you. The police has got some instruments in place, they've got the structures in place in order to protect them. For instance, your whistleblower or the person that came forth with the information, the police must take that information further and they must investigate it, and to such an extent that it minimizes the exposure of this person that came forth, and that they may not be needed to testify in court through the thorough investigation by the police. So yeah, those instruments are in place, but we are a long way from where we can say that they can guarantee it.
So in Cape Town then, where there were also mass shootings, they too are often linked to the issue of gangsterism in many of the communities there. We've got the police in the province of the Western Cape offering a reward of about, I think, 100,000 Rand it is, for information that leads to the arrest and prosecution of the people responsible for the murders of these 11 people who were killed this past weekend. Do these rewards, such rewards, do they actually help police to crack complex criminal investigations?
Yeah, I think, if you look back in history and in practice all over the world, it does help. You see that people actually got now an incentive, because remember, in many cases, these people are putting their lives and a lot of other things on the line in doing the right thing and coming forward with this information. But once again, as I mentioned, now it is up to the police to protect them, and not only physically protect them, but also through thorough investigation, sort of isolate them away from the case and not to expose them in the court room, for instance. So yes, I think it is imperative that we have these type of incentives. We think that is going to bring some positive outcomes, but the onus is on the police now to use that information that is they get and to build a thorough case in order to make sure that those people who are being identified, they actually are arrested and also prosecuted at the end of the day.
And what about Operation Prosper, the collaboration between police and the military that was basically announced by the president at the beginning of the year? At its heart is the goal of dealing with gangsterism, dealing with illegal mining as well, I think was the other layer. Is it really making a difference? Because look at the Western Cape, for example. In Cape Town alone, every week there are reports of mass shootings.
Yeah, from the start, there was a question mark of it because the military and deployment of the military in a role that they are not being trained for, and a role that they've not been mandated to do, where they also have very limited powers and authority. It raises a few questions on how effective they can be. We should not be told, listen, the military has done so many patrols and so on and so on and so. We should ask the question, and an answer should be given to us in how many gangs have been dismantled, how many gang leaders have been arrested, etc., etc. So the military can actually act as a force multiplier where they assist the police, but on their own and just having patrols and not having impact on the crime and not dismantling these criminal gangs. At the end of the day, we are wasting our money if we are deploying these people there.
And I quickly wanted to talk to you, Willem, about where the weapons come from that are used by gangsters and other criminals in the country. A lot of them are ill-gotten weapons, right? So they are not properly registered. They would have been stolen. And I couldn't help wonder, for example, in the Reiger Park case, when the two murdered police officers, their guns were also taken, their rifles, how common it is for guns taken from murdered police officers, etc., are then used to commit other crimes in future.
Yeah, unfortunately, the police, especially in the Western Cape, there have been quite a few incidents where policemen and women have been murdered for their weapons and their weapons taken off of them and then used in further crimes. We also see that a lot of police weapons that are being lost, a lot of military weapons that are being lost, are also end up in the hands of criminals. But we also see that, especially your cash in transits and so on, where the robbery takes place, those firearms of the guards are also being taken. So that serves as actually a valuable source of these illegal firearms. But we must also understand that we've got tremendous porous borders, and our borders are leaking like a sieve, and a lot of these firearms are coming from neighboring countries, being smuggled to South Africa because it's just so lucrative. There's currently a case before court where some of the police and military weapons from a neighboring country was actually smuggled down to Cape Town, and it ended up in the hands of the gangs. So that court case is ongoing and just serves for us as an indicator. We can look at the stolen firearms, where, of course, house robberies and so on take place, and that is the source. Also, the police and military and the private security, but also our borders serve as porous borders serve as a valuable sort of asset for these firearms to come through.
Willem Els, always really good to have your time and your insights. Thank you very much for speaking to us on SABC News.